be doing about it.
Thanks, Kate. You're awesome. So yeah, pretty much going to get straight into it. It is still called school refusal, but yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is they are refusing to go to school, aren't they? But it's kind of the way the word refusal is viewed, I guess. I don't like the term, but they do say I'm not going, so I guess it is refusal. But anyway, we'll move on from that. So that's kind of just my background. I've got. I'm going to skip this because Kate's already kind of explained stuff. These are my two awesome kids. Cameron's a bit older now, and Lily is amazing. And I am an autistic adult. I will share about that in a second. But one of the things that has driven me to do these kind of things is I've set up my own organisation now called Accepting Behaviour, and there's a small little team of teachers that are growing by the day, which is awesome, and we offer all sorts of support. So just quickly, if you want to like save that, you can. That's kind of where we're at. I've got a Facebook page. We do really good lives on there, and then my YouTube channel. I just keep uploading loads of free content for people just to have a listen to at your own leisure. So that's us. All right, and well, I wanted to start with this kind of question, really. A kid with a broken wheelchair, would they get into trouble for missing school? So what I mean by that is, imagine a kid's in a wheelchair in a mainstream school, and I don't know, they buckle their wheel by accident, and unfortunately the kid's got to be off for a month because the wheel needs to go to, I don't know, some specialist place to be created. What would actually happen? There's educators on here, isn't it? What would you do? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because for me, it's such a simple way of looking at it. And of course, a kid in a wheelchair, unless they're diagnosed autistic, is not autistic. But when we look at the comparisons, which I do want to compare it, and I'll explain why in a second. When an autistic kid refuses to go to school, would they get in trouble for missing school? What happens to the autistic kid? Well, they're expected to come to school. I hear this word, school is the best place for them. I hear that sentence, all the time. They must be exposed to the anxiety that they feel. And I know not all places do this, but this is kind of in a general, my experiences of what I've seen and what the walls that parents and families and us as a family as well have experienced. Parents need to be better, you need to be more educated. How many parents get sent on parents courses and in the wrong context, especially when there's things like school refusal. It's not about parenting, and I will talk about that in a second. And the need to build resilience. I can't talk about resilience, but I hate it. It's not what kids who are autistic need to hear. They're the most resilient kids I've ever worked with. They're not lacking resilience, but that's just what I think. But anyway, I'll move back to the slides. And the reason why I'm comparing a wheelchair user and an autistic kid is because under the Disabled Equality Act in the UK, if you've got a physical or a mental impairment, which autism isn't a mental, well, I guess it's an impairment. We're not going to talk about terminology here, but it's a diagnosed disability, isn't it? It's recognised. That has substantial long-term negative effect on your daily ability to do normal activities. Well, that's autism, isn't it? And that is a wheelchair user. So why are they treated differently? Why is it that parents are, I was speaking to a parent a couple of weeks ago, absolutely panicking because the school are threatening her with, possible court action and saying the kid needs to be in school and you need to up your game. And it's just, I don't understand that thinking. So I'm hoping today I'll help people to kind of think in a different way. So I'm going to go through a little bit about what I went through as a kid. There's me. I couldn't cope. Look at that amazing stripy shirt. How cool. My fashion sense has not changed. But anyway, so I couldn't cope in school, could not cope. And this is kind of just me, what I could remember. Loads of really, really intrusive OCD, whatever it, it doesn't matter, it's just OCD. Kicked out at 14, really depressed, had such a noisy brain. I was told I was mad and I was crazy, so I acted like that, I guess, especially as a little kid. I didn't know who I was. Loads of panic attacks. Self-medicated as I got older, drinking Thunderbirds and I don't know, whatever it was. Red 20 or something, I can't remember it. Anyway, couldn't handle busy crowds, still can't, don't like them. But that was my experiences, and the thing is, the reality of why I couldn't go to school and why it didn't work for me was My parents were on one side doing everything they could possibly do. And they didn't know what else to do. And I couldn't cope. And all that happened to me, all I can remember is I just had severe mental health issues. It just was horrible. And I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. Because here's the big problem for me. The focus was on modifying my behaviour. Everything was about behaviour. And then as I look at that hair and everything, as I turned into a young adult, I had all these issues, but I was just led to believe it was my fault. So that's kind of what happened as a teen, as an old teen, as I got into, into my early kind of adult life. And then as I am an adult now, all these things never changed. And I remember really finding life difficult. And I have for many, many years. And, today I got no hair and a big smile. But what happened when I was 30 was kind of like the answer to all my struggles, I guess. Not that it helped me massively, But one of the things, and Kate, thanks Kate for doing that amazing introduction, and I hope I can pay off and it does well in this talk. But basically, I was diagnosed autistic and I've got ADHD, so I'm a bit scattered. I told Kate earlier, I says I'm in a good mood today. So what that basically means is I'll be up on the ceiling in a second, and I jump and I'm scattered, but that's okay because that's me, and I'm learning to be more and more happy about who I am. So diagnosed as an adult, what it did to me was kind of freak me out, because I was like, well, what about all those times where I was bad, or I was not good, or I was just wrong, because that's what everyone told me I was. And I had to learn that as a kid there was nothing wrong with me. What was wrong was the way the professionals viewed me. I just needed acceptance and not behavioural modification. And sadly, as an adult, it's still the same. There are people that like me, that get me. There are people that don't. And, and that's just life. And that's just what I have to live with on a daily basis. And that's fine. But let's go to school refusal, or anxious non-attending, whatever you want to call it. Is it a breakdown or is it a breakthrough? Well, for me, I think it's a breakthrough. So if your parents on here and you're listening to it, don't look at your child as something that's wrong with them and they need a strategy to improve something. They don't. And I'll explain why I feel that in a second. Right. So there are two main approaches about how you would look at autistic kids who aren't in school. So you'll get professionals that will look at the medical thinking of it. So there's a problem. It's a deficit. We've got to fix it. We've got to come up with some strategies. We've got to help them to overcome this barrier that they've got. And imagine with the wheelchair kid, no one would have a meeting about, well, you know what? I think, little Timmy needs to come to school. I know he hasn't got a wheelchair, but he needs to overcome it. He needs to build resilience about how he can survive in life without his wheelchair. No one would talk like that. But we do that with autism because the disability is socialising. But there's always this element of, well, we can improve autistic kids and help them to get better. But actually, there's nothing wrong with them in the first place. But, sorry, I'll explain that in a second. And then the other side of it is the social or the difference model, which is kind of where I sit and where lots of other professionals like Bo Alvin and Gareth that was on earlier, lots of us are kind of started to say, well, you know what? Actually, it's not the autistic kid that's got the problem, because there isn't a problem. It's a way we think about what's going on in front of us. So I like this different way of thinking. So I'm going to just skip through these because most of you know about them. If you don't, go on my YouTube channel. There's loads of stuff on this. The deficit view basically, would look at an autistic kid who refuses schools as being their fault. So it's not like they go around going it's their fault, but they do, but in a nicer way. So telling kids, oh my God, I heard a story where I've heard it twice actually, this year, Senko chasing a kid around a car. It's like, I just don't see how that is beneficial. But anyway, so forgive me if you're a Senko chasing a kid around a car, you don't need to. And then the idea is that the kid needs to learn the skills to improve. I'll move that so you can see it. So the idea is that with the deficit view, it's, well, they need to be in school because that's the best place for them. If they just come into school, we'll give them all that they need. And it's not true, is it? Parents need to let go. Once they are in school, they're going to be fine. And parents need to be stricter, and you need to be better, and you need to come up with structures and improve your morning routine. And, I've been there, I've tried it, it doesn't work. Not all the time. Right, we've got to stretch them out of their comfort zone. That's a real common one. Building resilience. Now, too much time off school is not good for them. Okay, so that's kind of like the deficit view of school refusal. The different view, or the social view, is actually it's not the fault of the child. There's something going on, and what we need to do is try and understand what's going on to help them to not even overcome the fact that they're not in school. I think it's about having that word breakthrough. It's about understanding that what if this is leading to a much better place for this child? What if this child is saying, I'm telling you what I can't do, and I'm telling you what doesn't work for me. And all we need to kind of do is step back and just listen, which I will share later about how that actually does work really well. And also, so important, parents, it is not your fault, unless you're a rubbish parent and you don't care about your kids going to school, which I know you wouldn't be on this webinar in the first place. So it's not your fault that your kids aren't going to school. You don't need to be a better parent, all right? So the school refusal, or the avoidance view of it, would be that, well, with the different views, well, they can't go to school. It's very different to they won't go to school, which, you know, I agree. The word refusal is not the best. I like anxious non-attender. That's my favourite one. I don't know where I heard that, but there's lots going around. But again, it doesn't really matter what it's called. What matters is us fixing or helping. No, I hate the word fix. Helping kids and families who are going through this awful thing that is experienced when a child can't go to school. So the different view, or the social view, would look at it like this. School might not be the best place for some children, and it isn't. School, they should listen more to the parents, because they're the experts of their children, and that is so true across all the board. No matter how different the parents are in their views, I always listen, because I tell you, that's where you get all the answers. We don't need to stretch children out of their comfort zones in order for them to grow. No, we don't at all. And I'll show you that why in a second. They don't need to overcome their anxiety. And again, I'll share some case studies why this is something I passionately believe in. And having time off is actually healing and beneficial. So this is an article. I will share this. It's basically just a comment that I thought, yeah, that nails it. Deficit approaches are critiqued for conceptualizing the target individual or group primarily in terms of their perceived deficiencies, dysfunctions, problems, needs, and limitations. So a child is autistic and isn't going to school, so the parents are frantic because they've got to go to work. The Senko doesn't know what to do. The first place everybody sits is what's wrong. What's wrong? And there isn't anything wrong. So I'm hoping that today this will kind of help you a little bit understanding what I mean. There's so much more going on, right? Now, the first thing that I always try and deconstruct is this traditional view of education. So we're in the traditional view of education, aren't we? Children turn up at a certain time, go to school, they learn manners, put their hands up when the head teacher walks in, or I need to ask a question, whatever, all that kind of stuff. The idea is, it's about them reaching their full human potential. And the way we do it is we've got to teach kids these skills. And there's loads of them, isn't there? Being resilient, controlling your emotions, sharing, being with other people is good, taking turns, socialising, confidence, behaving properly, being a kind cut. There's just loads. The problem is when kids don't respond to those traditional skill learning, teaching elements, we panic because we think, oh my God, well, they're going to miss out. They're going to miss out on life. Something's going to go wrong. And the thing for me, sometimes, autistic kids, they do really well in school. And, I know stories of kids that do okay. They have their odd days and stuff, and that's great. I generally work with the kids that aren't doing very well. So this is why I'm very passionate about this area, because I find that group there in the red, there's loads of them. There's more that don't respond well to traditional skill teaching than do. So that's my area of interest and why I am doing the work I'm doing. I've just realised that it's raining outside and there's I've got a hole in my guttering. See, I'm no good at looking after my house, but I can do this stuff. Right. So what's the solution? How do we support kids who can't attend school? Love this, because this is what it's about. Who wants change? Well, we all do, don't we? We all want something better for our kids. whether we're a teacher, whether we're a parent. And here's the other flip side to it. Well, who wants to change? Not many people want to put their hand up and do that. Because why? Because change is difficult, absolutely difficult. And I've created this thing, right, called the accept approach. And I'll be really simple about it because I'm not a very clever person. I've come across something after years and years of working with all these kids from a special needs background, from my own background of and having my kids. So it's kind of like I've brought everything together, my professional, my personal, and I've noticed there's these specific areas that actually that's very consistent. And you can tell me if you have this experience too. But here's the thing. You mentioned the word acceptance in a school or in a professionals meeting and it turns people, it's like Marmite, and I don't get it because everyone goes, yes, we accept the kids, and then we go, well, are we going to actually apply it? I'm not sure about whether we can do that. And that's one of the things that I've experienced. So what I'm doing as a professional is trying to advance autism support and understanding, because this is kind of in a nutshell what I've found and what I've discovered. I don't know what you've discovered, this is what I've discovered. Not all children respond well to autistic support, and they need something different. So I don't know if any of you are trying to get written work published and blogs and stuff. It's really difficult, but I've been really lucky to get the accept approach published by the GAP, the Good Autism Practice, and I'm really grateful for it. And I'm now working with some of the professionals who are getting involved, and we're doing some more work, so I'm trying to get everyone involved in this stuff because I really believe passionately about it. In a nutshell, the accept approach, it basically looks at whatever problem, behaviour or struggle an autistic child is presented with, whatever issue they're having at home or school. The first step is to accept them just as they are, unconditionally and without judgment. Now that's not easy, right? I understand that, but bear with me. So let's look at it in a kind of a breakdown of it. You can access this journal, guys, on my website. So Kate, if you want to, actually no, I'll do it myself in a bit. You can get it. It's on the front page, so you can have a read of it. So you identify the problem, you apply what's called the 4 foundations, and then you just repeat it. It's really simple, okay? And we're going to go through those 4 foundations today, but I just want to give you more of an overview of why I've created them, why there's only 4. I don't really know why there's only 4, just what I did. But anyway, here's what it does, right? And it just blows my mind every day. I wake up just mind blown. I am going to share some stuff, and that's why I'm rushing, because I can't wait to share this stuff with you. So there's a negative loop that our kids get into. I must go to school to be better. I'm being lazy. It's my fault. I can't do things. I need to change. I'm wrong and I'm broken. Now, I know none of the professionals here and none of the parents here are saying those things to kids, but it's a bit like vicarious learning, isn't it? So they pick it up. Like I remember as a little kid, I was standing in a playground and I remember loads of kids running around me going, mad, and they're pointing at me, he's mad. And I remember, I was only like, I don't know, 7, not even that. And I remember it so vividly, oh, well, that's what's wrong with me, then I must be mad. And I just grew up thinking that, right? So we create these negative loops, even if, everyone says these wonderful things about us. It's the behaviours of people, isn't it? So I see loads of professionals and teachers who will say one thing but then do another. And that's why I find it very difficult with things like, when you are asking for the child's voice, that's great. And I do it all the time. But what if what they ask for, you can't give it them? What do we do with those kids? What do we do with a kid that you're asking for their voice? You're, whatever it's in an EHCP or even just in a, All About Me or whatever it is. What if they say, well, I really find that teacher difficult, or I can't go to school? How do we respond to that? Yeah, we're going to kind of say, oh, yeah, thank you for sharing those thoughts. And being autistic myself, what I find difficult is that my son's really open about all this kind of stuff. He cannot cope with being told one thing and then another thing happens, and I'm sorry, but it happens all the time, and it's really common, and I'm trying to break that down in a way, and it's only one tiny part of all this, isn't it? But the thing with this negative loop, we can do a lot about it as professionals and as parents. The accept approach flips the narrative. Just like the difference view, you know, this is all fits in. It's all stuff that's kind of works together, doesn't it? You don't need to go to school to be better. You don't. You know, who's that IKEA guy? You know, the guy who created IKEA. He never went to school in a day in his life, you know. And again, I'm not saying you're all going to create IKEA, but we've got to stop thinking that school is the be all and end all, because it's not, right? You're not being lazy. You're actually trying to find ways to cope. When a kid is under their blanket, and I'm going to share about a kid who hid under his blanket, and he's screaming, what they're trying to do is find ways to cope with a challenge that's in front of them. They don't want to go to school because they know, right in their heart, that it's not for them in that moment, whether it's whatever. Cameron used to have great year. He had 1 year of amazing time, and I remember all the other years in primary, just hell. But it was the teacher. He was awesome. He just went, I think your kid's just great. And he never had many issues. So that's something as well, isn't it? It's about the style. And I know that it's been covered really well in these talks earlier about all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to talk about that. But for me, the accept approach just stops everything and says, okay, let's just hold on and let's just look at what's important. So for example, telling a kid it's not your fault, telling them they don't need to change. In fact, we're the ones who need to change as the adults. Telling your child that, whether you're a teacher, a head teacher, social worker, parent, whoever, owning up to the fact that we don't actually always have the answers as adults, and we are going to do our best to change because we believe in what you're telling me. The idea of it is that kids reach a level of what's termed self-acceptance, all right? And the more and more now, so I was working for local authorities and I still do on an ad hoc basis now, but I'm now fully independent doing this accepting behaviour. And the work that's coming in is just blowing my mind, the impact of acceptance. And I'm not going to say anything about it. The parents are going to share in a second about the power of just accepting your kid for who they are. It's amazing, right? So we're going to talk about the 4 foundations of the accept approach. As I've said, you can read the journal article that kind of gives an introduction to it. I'm trying to get a book published at the moment. It's written. Please help me if anyone knows how to get a book published. I'm really trying. Yeah, anyway, it's there. It's ready. It's just waiting to go to print. So this is the best part I use on a daily basis. Now I'm working all the time now with kids that are not in school, kids that are in school, or massive mix. But this is what I do every session, and it's brilliant. Right, so you remove, you remind, you reassure, and you reaffirm. Very simple process. If you apply these things to every single problem, okay, maybe there's some problems that it's not going to work. I don't know. But for me, I haven't found one yet, right? So if you apply these, and I'm going to give you some real case studies here. It's so simple. And I'm going to give you an example before I go through each foundation individually. Sorry if I'm going fast. I've had loads of coffee and I know I haven't got much time. But I received an email, right? So let me give some context of what happened. I was working for a local authority. I was going into a school and I was giving my normal kind of advice and stuff. But as I walked into this building, there was a kid and I didn't know him and his mom. The kid was crying. The mom was very stressed. And what was going on was he was not trying to run away, but he was just screaming. This was a kid that, it's too late, had enough. He was in his uniform, but I could see he just couldn't get past that school barrier. And his mum didn't have a clue, didn't know what to do. And being a parent, I wanted to step in and help. But obviously in my professional role, I didn't know what was going on. So I went in and I just said to there was all the staff there looking outside the window, like, I don't know, wondering what to do. And I just said, well, I'm happy to go and have a chat if you want and see if I can help, as we all would do, wouldn't we? And there was a family support worker there, and I had a chat with this family support worker, and I just gave her some acceptance-based ideas to approach the mom with, just in that moment, to get him to calm down and then to move on when they're in a calmer place. And I didn't think anything of it. About 3 weeks went by and I received this email, and I'm going to just read you the email. There's no names in it, don't worry, it's just bits of it. It says, I wanted to say a massive thank you for the advice and guidance you gave me when I was trying to support the very dysregulated young man who was with his mother and wouldn't come into school, but also wouldn't leave the premises. Can you see that wall? My daughter has that. It's like she wants to go to school, but she can't. And they just kind of in constant conflict. I followed your advice, and within 20 minutes, we were able to support the family to leave the site, and I took him home where we were able to have a bit more of a chat about the situation. And then she says it was amazing to see the difference it made. He has been calmer, managing the transitions more easily, and less disruptive behaviour. Once again, thank you for taking the time and offer this much needed advice. The world needs more of it. So I get that feedback from someone I don't even know, and I just think, there you go, because I'm going to share what I said to this kid, right? To the professional. It was just remove the pressure for him to go to school in that moment. Just tell him he can go home. One of the problems that the mom said was that the school had advised that he can't go on games at home. If he goes home, he must be school ready. So the idea of school ready is, well, at home, if you're not at school, you need to get up on time, you need to get out your pajamas, you need to not go on games, you're at school. And I said, no. When he goes home, give him everything he needs to calm down, because he's in a meltdown state. So what that means is whatever's been working up to that point, it hasn't worked. So she removed the pressure for him to go to school, and then she said he could have whatever he needed at home to calm down. And I don't know the specifics, but the feedback was it calmed him down within 20 minutes. So there's something in this, right? There's something in this. So here's the first foundation. Remove the anxiety. Wherever you can, remove it. If something's causing too much anxiety, school, remove it. Well, how do you remove it? Well, you just take one day at a time, and I'm going to give you some examples of why you want to do it. But it's about listening to the kid, isn't it? So here's the problem. Force a kid to go to school who can't go to school, you're just going to get worse anyway. So it doesn't matter, does it? Might as well remove it now, or remove it in 6 months' time when the whole lot's gone wrong. The pajama kid. This is in the journal, so I'm only going to talk quickly about him. Couldn't go to school, applied the foundation of acceptance, and he went back to school. Only for an hour. But he went back, and we found a specialist school for him. And 2 years down the line, I phoned his mum because he was going into this journal. And I said, oh, is it okay? She said, yeah, that's great. And she said, do you know what? He goes all the time at school. She said, your work and support has impacted us as a family so much. She says, I'm now a special needs support worker at the school down the road. And I tell him if he can't go to school that one day, he doesn't have to. And it's amazing the difference that just that one little message gives to this kid. And the problem with the pajama kid was he thought that the school, he had a science lesson, so delving into it all. The professionals involved, psychology struck him off because they said that he's being manipulative, and the parents just need to be better parents, and that's their view, and that's fine. I just basically said, no, he doesn't have to go to school, he can stay in his pajamas, hence pajama kid. Oh, he was told by a professional he must get dressed and get up. And I said, no, you don't have to at all. And within weeks, the healing happened, and I haven't got time to explain what happened. But I honestly, removing the expectation to go to school, I worked with the school. I said, give me 3 weeks, and we'll do this program where he doesn't have to go to school, and we'll see what happens. And he started going in on his own. Previous to that, his dad had to carry him in a taxi, crying his eyes out. And this is a grown man. There's something wrong with making these kids go to school. Okay, there is. It doesn't work. Anyway. The 4 foundations of acceptance: reminding him that it's not his fault, removing the pressure in that moment, reassuring him that it's going to be okay, and reaffirming that you're with him 100% of the way. We did those. That's all we did. Transform this kid's life, right? Healed his trauma. That was for me more important than anything else. College refuser. Really didn't want to go to school. Mum was fretting because the school was saying she's got to go. She had an EHC. It's important she's there. She was like, I hate you, Mum. And Mum was showing me all these text messages. Says, I hate you. I said, what's going on? She'd spoke to me like in a parent group. I said, what's happening? She went, I don't know what to do, Aaron. It's like she just can't go, won't go. And I said, all right. And well, thinking of the foundations, well, remove the pressure. What is the pressure? She doesn't want to go to college. Remove it. Tell her she doesn't have to go. Tell her it's not her fault. Tell her that it's going to be okay, and reassure her and reaffirm to her that you're on her side. So she did that. About 3 weeks later, she came in and said, Aaron, look. And she showed me a phone, and she went through a phone. It says, I love you, Mum. What have we got for pizza? Mum, you're amazing. Mum, I'm so happy. But there's loads of beautiful text, completely the flip from the other side. I said, well, what's going on? She went, she's actually at college sending me these messages. She said, the moment I told her she doesn't have to go, she had a couple of weeks of just finding herself. She went back again. There's something in it. Honestly, there's something in it. There really is. Just removing the anxiety. And I know That's not the norm. So I know some of you are probably going, what's this guy on about? I hope you're not, because I'm more and more, into this. But anyway, bear with me. Like I say, I've had loads of coffee. The second thing then, reminding, it's not their fault. If there's one thing, and I say this every time I'm doing these amazing sessions that I'm allowed to do, if there's one thing you tell your kid, it's not their fault. Because it isn't, is it? Is autism their fault? No, it's not their fault. Because once a kid starts to believe that they're okay, just as they are, then that's when things start to turn around. And I'm going to share with you one of the most amazing stories. And I'm working with a lad at the moment. I see him for about 3 or 4 hours a week. This is what he was like when I first met him. He was under a blanket. And he hid under a blanket. School had broke down. He was not in school at this point. And his mum had applied for what's called EOTAS. And I will share about what that is in a second. First session, I'm there. Mum said, Aaron, he's going to hide under his blanket. He won't talk to you. He does not communicate with people very well, especially professionals. He finds it very difficult. And he will hide under a blanket and nod. That's all he'll do. And I says, okay, that's fine. So I went in and I applied the foundations. So what is the thing I needed to remove? I needed to remove the pressure to talk to me. I said to him, you don't have to talk to me today, mate. And the second thing is I reminded him, do you know why you're finding things difficult at the moment? Because it's not your fault. You're autistic. You can't help it. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with the fact that school has broken down for you. There's nothing wrong with you hiding under that blanket. It's not your fault. I'm going to make sure that I do whatever I can to help you, to support you and find your way. And we will do at your pace and when you're ready. And he was kind of on those lines. And this is... So what happened? So that was it. Then this is how simple the accept approach is. So I just took that pressure, and his mum sadly said to him, some professionals were encouraging him to take off his blanket because you need to talk to people. Well, yeah, you do, but no, you don't. If you don't want to, that's my view on it anyway. So I've been working with him now for it's about a year. This kid is phenomenal, right? Second session, the blanket was folded up in his other room. He was there saying hello, greeting me, and we started our second session. I was his mum, well, this is the feedback from his mum. She said, I've just broken up some of the feedback. From the first time you came to our home, I don't think you realise the impact you've had, not on our son, but just for our family. He knows, this is the key about the accident fault, he knows it's not his fault. And that's huge for us. The impact has been massive. The difference is now he's expressing himself so much more. He's leaving the house, gaining more independence and wanting to do more himself, like getting dressed, sometimes prepping lunch and making a drink. You're also giving us confidence as his parents to trust our gut. Working with our son and doing this is slowly building confidence and independence that we was not sure we would see for a very long time. Just mind-blowing. And yeah, he's awesome. But I could go on and on about it because I'm aware of time. So what is EOTAS? Well, it basically just means education provision for children and social emotional, just all different. It's literally kids who are not able to cope. And there is an option that you guys can go for and speak to your school about it. Yes, there are, depending what country you're in, some people go, oh, that's not possible. But it's there. This is government guidance. You can read that. I have a pack that I can send that breaks down the government guidance on EOTAS. It's a new thing. It's a growing thing. And I think it's valuable things. Because sometimes a kid just maybe for a few months needs to be off school. Needs to have EOTAS, so the working, what we do is we take learning to them. We do science with them, music, technology, whatever they need to do, that's what we do. And it's mind-blowing when you take that pressure and that anxiety away from the kids. They're just themselves, and it's amazing. So I'm running out of time. Oh, no, I'm not. I've got 5 minutes. Reassuring, that's the third one, that it's going to be okay. When a child is distressed, this is a really good top tip. Don't try and fix the problem. Just reassure them it's going to be okay, even if you don't think it's going to be okay. I mean, I can say this as a parent. My wife and myself had to leave our jobs to support our kids because no one else was. We're not in that situation now, but we've been there. The pain of losing money, the strain of knowing that the professionals who say they're there aren't there, and it's awful. And I know I'm not talking about everyone, I'm not generalizing, but here's the thing, right? I believe there's a lack of support so much in this area of the world that I've doing all this on my own, independently with my wife, because we believe passionately that we can help just a tiny difference by just placing acceptance into the autism world and seeing what happens. And we know this, guys, let's be honest, there are good professionals, there are not so good professionals, and they're everywhere. And luckily Lily's doing okay now, my son's doing okay. Although here's an example, Cameron is a young adult, had crisis support. He's an adult. So he told me yesterday, rang me quite upset about it. He said, Dad, you know, the advice that the adults give me, an autism expert, that you need a calm box. What do you mean? Because I know that little kids have calm box. You know, you open up a box and you have a picture of things that calm you down. That's what you give to kids that are a little bit anxious at school. I went, are you serious? That's what they've offered. They offered him a calm box. And it's just, my son is like so intellectual. He's writing a book at the moment, and that's the advice, because not because that person's a bad person, but it's because they're doing it with good intention, but there's nothing else. Once those autism strategies don't work, there's nothing else out there. What do you do? And this is when I create the accept approach, because that's what I do, that's what we do, and we're having some amazing results from it. I just want to quickly go through Reassuring. So there was a kid called Batman Boy. He's also in the journal. He was so traumatized by school. We applied the foundation of acceptance, and then he returned back. He actually went to full-time education. Not that that was the goal, but that's where he happened to go, because he healed in time. And his mum sent me this feedback. She said, Aaron has affected such change in my son. It's been quite extraordinary. My son is looking forward for the first time in far too long. He's opening up his mind to the possibilities around him. My son is actually believing that he's worth something. Now, every day this comes in now, working for myself. I hate it. It scares the hell out of me. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I tell you, the feedback I'm getting, it's just making me more and more like, oh my God, acceptance is amazing. And I just need to share it. And some of you agree, some of you won't. And that's okay, isn't it? Because we're humans and we're trying to find ways of working out how to best support autistic kids. As long as we're all doing that, then I'm happy. And here's the last thing, reaffirm. Right. What's also common in the world is this. Come on now, you've got to meet me halfway. I've set up all these amazing, see it at school, for example. Oh, if only they're coming to school, but they can't. Oh, but we could give them so much wonderful things in school. Well, can you just go home and see them for a few hours? Oh, no, we haven't got the staff for that. It's like, what? It's like kids can't meet you halfway because they're autistic. So reaffirming is you're meeting them 100% of their way. And from there, then you get the best out of everything that you can do. Because here's what reaffirming is. No matter what, I'm by your side. No matter what, I accept you. It's really simple context, really simple ways of looking at things. I have got top tips, but I haven't got time. So I'm going to just quickly show, throw out questions, I guess. I don't know. Do I throw out questions? I'm not sure. Here's something I think is really important, right? So I've underlined it. You can get this. Ensuring a good education for children who cannot attend school because of health needs, right? It says here, the support should meet all pupils' individual needs, including social and emotional needs, enabling them to thrive and prosper in the education system. The local authority is responsible for arranging provision and must have regard to this guidance. So that's something you can look at. It's there, ensuring a good education for children. You can just type it in. There's so much now. We're getting better and better at this, right? We are, and EOTAS is something that we do, and we're only a small egg in this. Well, egg, I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's what I don't. I hate it when there's time limits. But anyway, we need to start changing the way we view school refusal. We need to start thinking differently about why a kid cannot attend school. What I'm doing, what we're doing as a team is we've got this accepting behaviour. You can sign up to our mailing list. We've got YouTube stuff that's there. You can hire us in on a consultation basis. There's loads of things we can do. One of the things that we are doing now that's growing amazing I'm like, wow, it's like terrifying that I might have a team of teachers doing this stuff. But we offer EOTAS, so it's education other than at school, supporting in Worcestershire, Solihull, and in the Birmingham areas for autistic kids as an interim. So you can go to local authorities and say, okay, well, so while my kid's been out of school for 6 months, why don't we have accepting behaviour for the interim? There's lots of things you can do, and there's no reason why you can't ask them, and to support. So that's what we're doing. This is my email address. Feel free to contact me at any point. And yeah, that's about it, really. I'm going to shut up now and ask for questions. I've left 10 minutes because I thought there might be some questions, because I know that acceptance is like Marmite, which it shouldn't be, because everyone should love Marmite. No, I hate Marmite. But anyway.